All right, y'all. Thanks for logging in and checking out this video on your UGS 104 Week 3 seminar. My name is Jeff Mayo. I'm Director of FYE, work alongside Carolyn, Yassine, and Lisa. So if you're watching this, you're in one of our Monday or Tuesday class meetings that did not meet this week. So this is an optional review of our seminar. These PowerPoint slides are also available in your weekly module. However, if you wanted to get a little additional context, get a better sense of how we're approaching it, what the other sections are seeing, this is a chance for you to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. There's going to be less interaction, so this is certainly going to take far less time than in class, hopefully under an hour. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so first we just wanted to kind of touch on your first SMIT, which was talking about transfer and first year videos. We have started to review these and really like a lot of your responses. It looks like you got some more context to the work that we're doing, which is great. You can see that across the state, across the country, students do struggle with making that transition to college, based on what we know about retention rates, about graduation rates, student satisfaction. And so we really were happy to see that these videos had an impact with you. We are going to focus today on the two mindsets, growth mindset and belonging mindset. So starting off with growth mindset, it's not failure, it's not yet. Not yet being a phrase that hopefully sticks with a lot of y'all as we learn how to grow. So what is growth mindset? It's just the belief that intelligence can be developed, that it's not a static thing, it's not something you're born with or that's innate. It's something that you can grow through hard work, effective strategies, and using your resources. Sometimes it's easier to see this from comparing growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. It's opposite. So on this slide, we can see that a fixed mindset is the belief that ability is a fixed trait and it cannot change. Whereas for growth mindset is that belief that ability is malleable and can be developed. So in school, this might come across as, for a fixed mindset, that effort is bad. If you're smart, you shouldn't have to work hard. Whereas growth mindset is the opposite. Effort is good. It's how you improve. It's how you get better. Jumping down a little bit to the meaning of failure. Failure is the end of the story. It's time to give up for a fixed mindset. Whereas failure is the beginning of the story, time to try again. The way I like to see, the way that this is most obvious to me is when you get the your score back on a Scantron test, perhaps. So let's say that you get a 72 on a Scantron test. A fixed mindset might be like, that's all I know. I know 72% of that. There's no way, I'm not going up or down from that, right? A growth mindset says, I got 72% right on this test. That means I have 28% more to go. So they want to know exactly which questions they got wrong, follow up, shore up that part of the content, and be ready for the next test. So we're going to focus on those three principles: new strategies, effort, and resilience. We have a quick video to go to show what we mean by new strategies. As you can see, the squirrel there is trying to make it up the pole, but someone sneaky put a slinky there, and so the squirrel cannot climb up. The slinky just pulls down every time. But our squirrel friend here has adopted a growth mindset and understands I'm not going to keep trying the same thing over and over again. I need a new strategy. So they wait for the slinky to recoil, jumps back up, steals all the bird food there. All right. So thinking about this, when applying it to first-year students at UT Austin, what new strategies did you have to adopt to adjust to life as a college student, academic, social, personal? We had students talk about this in class. I'll point out here, as you're thinking about this in your own transition to UT, is that a lot of times we might think of growth mindset as being strictly an academic concept, but really it can apply to social life, personal life, any other sort of development that one goes through in college. So one new strategy academically could be, well, I was going to the professor's office hours, but it's not really clicking for me there. It kind of just feels like the lecture over again, which I didn't get. So I'm going to try out the TA's office hours, or I'm going to watch some videos on this content on YouTube, or I'm going to go to the Sanger Learning Center for individual or group tutoring. I'm going to start joining the kind of impromptu class meetups at the library, so we can kind of go over the content together. So it's trying these new strategies once you realize the first one doesn't work. And odds are the first one isn't going to be the best one for you. Now, socially, this might come across as, you come to UT, you have something in mind of like, I'm going to be part of this group. I absolutely want and need to be part of this social group. Well, maybe you're going for a spirit group or a Greek group, and you're not selected for that organization. That can be devastating, So now you have to rethink through all your strategies, Can I find another student org to join? Can I find a group of folks through my residence hall, through an intramural sport, through an on-campus job, through an off-campus, religious community? Where am I finding my community if it's not going to be this one thing I had in mind? So how can you encourage your mentees to try new strategies? Certainly by letting them know about all the different resources they have on campus, across Austin, online. Also sharing your own experience, but not dictating that they do something the same way. So you want the point of your story to be that you tried something, it perhaps didn't work, you tried something new, rather than saying, oh, I had a similar thing. I went to the group tutoring session for this class and it fixed all my problems. Because what works for you might not work for that person. How can you support them as they navigate changing their habits? This is a good way to use your one-on-ones. This is a good way to use text or GroupMe for those quick check-ins. This does not have to take a lot of time for you at all. 30 seconds to check in, they write back, 30 seconds to reply. For each of your students, that might be a minute every week or two where you're checking in to see how they're doing. And sharing about your own ways that you're changing habits, that you're trying new things, letting them know what's working, what's not working. It just makes it okay for them to have those same experiences as well. So talking about effort, one of the quotes from Angela Duckworth, who literally wrote the book Grit, all about growth mindset, is talent counts, but effort counts twice. So that might sound kind of funny at first, but it's the idea that we're not denying that there might be certain talents that people have or acquired at a very early age. But the research shows that effort counts twice. So the example that that really stuck out to her book to me is a study on college and Olympic swimmers. Is that they have physical talents. Some of them have wide, broad shoulders, long limbs, big hands, big feet, range of motion, strength, certain things that are relatively innate. Some of those are developed to a degree, but some of that is something you're born with. However, when they're seeing who's winning these collegiate and Olympic races, talent did play a role. So, the tallest and longest and strongest, on average, do better than folks who are shorter or have, less of those physical talents, fewer of those physical talents. However, what accounted for a greater proportion of their wins was the amount of effort. It was the hours they were putting in the pool, in the gym, with coaches, studying film, all those additional things that go into the effort of being a great swimmer, was a much better predictor of who would win a race than mere physical talents. So the sociologist David Chambliss argues that excellence is a qualitative phenomenon. Qualitative improvements produce changes in achievement. Talent is a useless concept. People's concrete actions lead to outstanding performance. So it's not helpful that, to say that someone is a math person. Oh, I'm just not a math person, or I am a math and science person. That's not a useful concept to think of yourself that way. And that excellence is mundane. It's accomplished through doing actions consistently over time. It's putting in the work, putting in the effort. It can feel repetitive at times, but that's what makes excellence. And that can be a hard concept for students who could pretty easily get A's in high school and, skim through readings, go over notes the night before a test, things like that. And that's a hard and rude awakening when they get to UT and experience the academic rigor here for the first time. So let's watch another video about the mundane pieces of being excellent.
From hitting the gym 6 days a week without fail, to spending quality time with her husband, Jonathan Owens, here's how Simone Biles trains for her performances. I have to start off with her fitness routine, of course. Trust me, being the most decorated gymnast in history isn't a piece of cake. For Simone, it involves serious dedication. That means having a jam-packed training schedule. Simone hits the gym for a whopping 7 hours a day, 6 days a week. Yeah, you heard that right. 7 hours of intense training, day in and day out. She's up and at it by 6 a.m. And by 7 a.m., she's already knee-deep in the routine. She trains and sweats it out for a solid 3.5 hours before taking a break. Then, at 2 p.m., she's back at the gym, giving it her all until 5:15. It's obvious that being a gymnast requires some next-level skills, and Simone knows that. This girl has some great discipline. She's got something up her sleeve that takes her training to the next level, and it's none other than cross-training. This girl knows how to mix it up and keep...
Okay. We won't go into the full cross-training elements of her workout, but the idea there is that it's effort, it's every day, it's doing the work, it's planning, it's discipline, it's helping your students with their time management, it's helping your students with building out their calendar, staying on top of their work, using their resources again, right? All those things really matter. So how does effort play into academics at UT Austin? Like I just mentioned, it's an everyday thing. It's staying on top of things, especially compared to the high school experience where many of the students that you're going to have, didn't feel as challenged in high school. What are challenges to increasing effort on schoolwork, especially for those who are used to a fixed mindset? If you think about that, going back to how that chart that showed what a fixed mindset really means, is that effort means you're not good. Effort is bad. Effort means you are incapable or incompetent. Effort is not how you get smarter. It's what people who don't understand, is what they do. So really cracking through that everyone needs to put in this effort at UT. This is not something that's unique to you. It might look like everyone else around you has things figured out, or that they're not studying as much as you have to study, but everyone's putting in the effort to succeed. So the third principle is resilience. This is a quote from Samuel Beckett, the Irish playwright, poet. Ever tried, ever failed, no matter, try again, fail better. So when we were preparing for this class, we came across the fail better quote, and really liked this idea that no matter, try again, fail better. You're going to fail, get it out of the way, try it, fail, move forward, fail again, just fail better each time. So the idea, the American Psychological Association defines resilience as the process and outcome of successfully adapting to difficult or challenging life experiences, especially through mental, emotional, and behavioral flexibility and adjustment to external and internal demands. So this acknowledges the idea of neuroplasticity, which you saw in the reading. We have to be flexible. We have to try new ways. We have to be able to bend, not break, right? And adjusting to external and internal demands. So the external demands might be, who your professor is in an academic setting, the constraints you have with your time in your day, what resources are or are not available to you. Internal demands might be more of the, again, of the way that you approach the work. Do you feel capable? Do you feel competent? Do you have the self-efficacy and confidence needed to do the work and put in the time, and to rebound from those failures, right? Understanding, truly embracing the idea that there will be failures. There will be failures in front of you as you continue, but it's making those improvements each time along the way. And here's a clip that talks about this idea of failing better.
Fail Better is a new free exhibition here at the Science Gallery, and what we're trying to do is to really kind of start a conversation about failure. Is failure the opposite of success, or is it actually something else that's a natural part of the process of creativity that we should accept and embrace?
We want people not just to come along and see all of the objects and hear about the stories of failure, but we want people to come and share their own stories of failure.
I've failed a lot, but I've only succeeded from my failures.
There's no major failures.
Fail, fail, fail.
The first thing that comes to mind is like the driving test. It took me like 4 times to get it. I've broken my collarbone twice in the last 2 years, so.
I feel like I embarrassed myself a lot, and I ended up, I feel like just embracing that feeling of embarrassment.
We want people to be proud of their failures, because if you failed, it means you tried. It means you put yourself out there, you made an effort to do something.
People talk about the need to fail fast, fail early, fail often. That's a really important message for Fail Better.
We've got loads of wonderful contributors in this show. We've got Sonia O'Sullivan, we've got Ranulph Fiennes, we've got James Dyson, we've got Mark Pollock, and they've all shared with us their stories of failure, their experiences, and their take on failure, essentially.
What Christopher Reeve's chair represents is the failure to find a cure for paralysis. But on the flip side, everything he did was about hope, was about exploring boundaries, was about pushing the limits and challenging conventional wisdom.
As an inventor and as an entrepreneur, what it really means is, like, I guess, setting your ambitions quite high. And failure is always going to be something that is living with you when you've set a high goal.
The important thing is process, work, rework, redrafting, re-editing.
We cover a lot of different perspectives on failure in this exhibition, everything from purposeful failure with soluble circuits, which dissolve so they can be recycled, to fuses, which fail so that a greater system doesn't have to, and even to other things like the Mars Climate Orbiter, a disaster which failed because people mixed up units.
Some of the things here in the exhibition, they might seem like failure at the time, and then, you know, decades, maybe even centuries later, we realise what a success they are.
Your opinion on what constitutes failure isn't necessarily correct. So you might think that you failed, but that's not necessarily true.
So we're going to stop it there, but you know, there's so many important concepts that come up in that video. One of which is the idea that failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of the process of success. If you're not failing at all, perhaps that means you're not challenging yourself. You have not set your expectations or your goals high enough, because there should be failure along the way. You know, aim high, aim big. You know, thinking out of school like UT, I mean, you're at the state's flagship university. You are swinging big in your first year coming to UT. And so just keeping that in mind. When have you been resilient during times of change or transition? This could be for UT, it could be other times of transition or change for you. Why is it important for you to encourage your mentees to fail? That is a really important question that we want you to think about, which is tied to this next slide. How or where can new Longhorns fail better academically, socially? So how are you creating safe spaces to fail better? Like in one of the videos I believe you watched in preparation for this week, the idea that there are spaces where you need to perform, performative spaces, tests and projects, but there's spaces where you can fail. That can be in class discussion, it can be in discussion boards, it can be at class meetups at the library, it can be at tutoring, it can be in office hours, it can be in a study session, you know, organized by a FIG mentor, a TRIG mentor. Socially, you know, how can we make spaces for it to fail socially? So having a number of icebreakers, you know, someone might feel really shy or introverted on day one and is quiet during the first icebreaker. And so you might think of that as failing the first icebreaker, right? No one got to know them. They weren't particularly open to hearing from other people. But after week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5 of you creating, you know, check-ins, icebreakers, highs and lows, offering time for announcements, even just times where they break away into pairing off or small groups to, you know, talk about a campus resource or to work on a time management worksheet or something like that. Those are all opportunities for them to fail better at making those social connections in their FIG or TRIG. So applying the growth mindset, how can you integrate growth mindset and its 3 core tenets into your academics? Have you seen opportunities to fall into a fixed mindset at UT? How would growth mindset change how you approach the situation? Those are things that we want you to think about as a mentor. You know, again, this could be something like you took a Scantron test and you got a 62 or a 92. Did you follow up with the professor to see, you know, I want to know which questions I got wrong. It's not helpful to know that you did not know 40% of the material. You need to know which of the 40%. Where can I focus my efforts to go back and improve my understanding there? Lots of examples like that, you know, of creating safe spaces to fail, learning from failures, following up when you get feedback from a TA or a professor. Institutions still need to do their part. This was also talked about in the Rob Krosno video. So this does not remove the institution, in this case UT Austin's, responsibility to provide support. However, a growth mindset is still the most powerful tool that the individual student can adopt to make sure that they're doing their part and understanding that the brain is a muscle. It can be built, it can be improved, it can become stronger. You can find new ways to learn. You can strengthen those ways of learning. So now we're going to shift over to the belonging mindset component. So someone with a belonging mindset is confident that 1, they belong, and 2, they are valued by their teachers and peers. Those are 2 different things. You know, and belonging can be a hard thing to kind of pinpoint. But it's the idea that you can be yourself. There are people who understand you, that you have people in spaces that you are part of at UT. And being valued means that you're appreciated, that your contributions are acknowledged, that you are sought out, that your contributions are sought out in class. And so there are lots of ways that a mentor can show that their mentees are valued. It's important to understand that a belonging mindset does not prevent adversities. It's about how you respond to them, having the confidence to meet challenges, and understanding that you're not alone in this process. So another way, similar to the fixed versus growth mindset, looking at students who on the left believe that their experience is not typical, that people like me don't belong here and aren't welcomed here. So that could be, you know, I'm from a small town, I'm a student in engineering without a certain background, versus student who believes it is normal to have challenges at first and to worry about belonging, but this is a process. So it's common to go through challenges like this, right? So the behavioral response between the 2 groups, the first group, they withdraw from the academic environment and learning process because they don't feel like they belong, they don't feel welcomed, they don't feel like this is a place for them, versus sustained involvement with the academic environment and learning process at hand. They know that challenges are a normal part of the process. They are to be expected. I need to redouble my efforts. I need to dig in further. This is what the challenge is for me to really, push myself. The academic outcome for the first group is diminished academic engagement and performance, whereas the academic outcome for the second group is increased academic engagement and performance. And then this whole process is reinforcing itself, right? So negative outcomes reinforce that lack of belonging. So when they get that failing grade, it's gonna be like, this just proves to me that I don't belong. I knew it from the get-go. I knew that students like me are not welcome here. It's not for us. Or the positive outcome of, I put in the effort, it worked, I did better than I expected. I still might not have gotten that A, but I'm going to continue to put in the work because I'm seeing positive outcomes. So what does belonging mean in student success? A sense of acceptance and inclusion, so feeling valued and connected to the campus community. This is also seen sometimes as people saying that, like, I have an engineering mindset, I have a STEM identity, if I'm in the College of Natural Sciences, that I am a scientist, I am a science student, or a philosophy student, I am a philosopher, I am an emerging philosopher, I am a philosophy student, I belong here. It is an identity I adopt. Psychological safety, students believe they matter and their presence is acknowledged. So, you're not just a number on a page, you're not just a face out in a giant lecture hall, which is really a huge part of where Figs and Trigs come in. None of our groups are more than 25 students. Many are under 20. And that's where they can be seen as individuals who have something to contribute. Impact on outcomes, belonging predicts persistence, engagement, and academic success. Like we talked about, it's this reinforcing structure that belonging begets effort, effort begets positive outcomes, which then feeds back into itself. And critical during transitions, especially important for first year transfer and underrepresented students. One of the readings talks about a study that happened at a large university, hint, that might have been UT Austin, and they talk about students, underrepresented students, and closing that gap on their success in the first year. And so we know that especially there's an impact for students who are in transition, experiencing that, and for students who are underrepresented. So it might feel like you're a transfer student, you're not meeting other transfer students on campus. A trig is great for that as well. It's a way to find your community. Belonging mindset. How does this relate to the data we learned in the videos about struggles for first year and transfer students? Going back to some of those stats you learned about retention rates, graduation rates, student outcomes. How do Figs and Trigs address these issues, right? How can Figs and Trigs help with that sense of belonging that will reinforce good habits? Belonging uncertainty, also, that opposite of belonging means that students are looking for cues. So it's the idea that they have this bias that everything that points to them not belonging, they are going to hold on to, and everything that points to them belonging, they'll disregard as, a coincidence or unimportant. So as a mentor, one of your main responsibilities is fostering that belonging, really reinforcing those moments where they can't be ignored, that students belong here. You're there for them. This Fig Trig community is there for them. We're all struggling. Things don't work out your first time. Kind of adopting some of that growth mindset of, if your first strategy doesn't work, how can you try some new strategies to establish that sense of belonging? Why belonging matters. So looking into educational researches like Strayhorn and Tinto, Strayhorn shows that belonging is a basic human need akin to food and shelter. Students who feel like they belong are more likely to persist academically, engage socially, develop a positive self-concept, which mentorship can foster. Vincent Tinto, one of the foundational scholars on student retention in higher ed, found that student success is tied to academic and social integration. And institutions must create environments where students feel connected to peers or faculty and see themselves as part of the campus community. Again, that's exactly what we're trying to do with our Figs and Trigs. The whole burden does not go on the student. Figs and Trigs are UT Austin's effort to show that we're taking responsibility for creating community and sense of belonging and validation as well. So what did your mentor do to help you feel like you belonged at UT? So if you were in a Fig or a Trig previously, what did your mentor do to make you feel like you belonged as part of that Fig Trig, as part of your college, or maybe the bigger Longhorn community? What can you do as a mentor to promote a sense of belonging in your students? Are there good things that you can carry forward that you learned from your mentor, or new things that you want to try? My Monday class heard this story from me, but perhaps the other sections didn't hear this, but we had a mentor years ago whose students all shared a course that met at like 8 or 9 o'clock on a Friday morning. No one wanted to go to that lecture. So she showed up every Friday morning with a new cat t-shirt on and just stood outside the class as they walked in. It was a small gesture to show that, hey, I want to give you one small little incentive or something to brighten up your day as you walk into this 8 a.m. Friday lecture. How she had 15 different cat shirts, I'm not sure, but it just shows that I'm creating this idea that I'm here for you, we're a community, you belong here, I want you here, and I'm going to be here for you. So what are your reactions to this mindset? Does the idea of belonging, what components are most important to you? Also thinking of the second piece, that feeling value or validated, where does that come from? Peers, professors, other staff that you come across on campus, and how as a mentor can you make your students feel valued and validated? Thinking back to our readings, Conquering the Freshman Fear of Failure. If you think everyone has more friends than you, you're not alone. Think back at your initial reaction when you learned you were accepted to UT Austin. Did you have any doubts about it? Did others have those same doubts? Were you thinking oh gosh, am I going to get there? Am I going to do well? Am I really cut out for that? I'll share that when I got into my doctoral program at UT Austin, I truly, truly thought it was a mistake. I thought some lines on a spreadsheet were swapped. They don't know what they're doing, which brought up these ideas of imposter syndrome. All signs should have pointed to show me that I was deserving and that I was capable and I could do the work. But the only things I could think about for those months leading up to starting the doc program were, someone got this wrong, I shouldn't be here, I'm out of my element, Everyone else here is so much more accomplished and smarter than me. And it really took some time for me to realize that I belonged, I was deserving. If I put in the time and the effort and do the work, lean on my cohort and my resources, I'm going to do fine. And I think your students are going to share a lot of those. Many of your students will share those feelings, or they might get their first test back and realize, oh gosh, maybe now I don't feel like I belong. This was kind of an awakening for me too. This kind of leads us into our reflection essay that's going to be due before your next class, 10 p.m. the night before your next class meeting, where we want you to reflect on your experience as a first year or transfer student at UT, write about the difficulties that you experienced in your transition to campus. So we want this to be a narrative. We want you to talk, use the first person, talk about I felt this way when I was accepted. I felt this way I was coming to orientation or first got to campus, my first weeks on campus. And then get into some real specifics. Where did you feel like you were not belonging? Was it in the classroom? Was it socially? How did this change over time? Did you try new strategies? What worked? What did not work before that? How did the things not working make you feel? When something finally did work or click, how did that make you feel? And to finish out the reflection essay, how has this experience changed your outlook on how you will overcome future challenges at UT? Has this changed, perhaps, reflecting back, has this changed how you might feel like you belong, where you feel validated, where you feel valued, how you might compare yourself to others? So be specific, include details that convey the process that you went through, even approaches that did not appear to be successful. In the syllabus, we talk about the use of AI and different resources that are available to you. This is a reflection essay. We don't really see a space for that. We're not going to take off any significant points for grammar. So if you have some run-on sentences, things like that, there's really no need to have it polished up by AI. And so what we want to know is we want this to be obvious about you, details about you, your environment, your classes, your organizations, your resources you used, how you felt along the way, and how you feel moving forward. So yeah, that's going to be due 10 p.m. the night before your next class meeting. You have resources in your module. There's some more details in the prompt for that assignment. And please make sure to note about the formatting. I believe it's 2 pages or so double spaced. Please don't use the first half of your page to say your name, your instructor's name, the name of the class, the due date, the title of your essay, and then finally you're starting. You can just jump right into it. We know who you are and what this assignment is. We want to see, follow the format as it's shown on the prompt. But that's it. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. And I hope this was helpful. If you have any additional questions, stop by our office. We always have someone here who can talk to you. Reach out to your instructor over email or set up a time to talk to them specifically. We're here to help you. But this is a really great foundational piece that we'll be coming back to throughout the semester. And really looking forward to seeing your essays that look back at your sense of belonging as you were starting at UT. So thanks again for watching, and we will see you soon.